von 3 israelischen Premierministern, unter ihnen Barak, Netanyahu, Ariel Sharon. 2002 bis 2006 war er Israels Botschafter in Washington und seit 2009 ist er Israels Vizeaußenminister. Meine Damen und Herren, liebe Freunde, einen großen Applaus. Herzlich willkommen, Baruch haba, Dani Ayalon.
Shalom, it's a great honor to be here, and I will try to speak slowly so the translation can be done in a good fashion. But I would like to welcome all of you, dear friends of the State of Israel, great Germans and dear Europeans, elected officials, people from the town, leaders of the Jewish community, people of the press. I am really encouraged to see so many great friends of Israel with outpouring support and indeed love for the State of Israel. I know that Europe is doing pretty well. And it is very important for me to be here as the representative of the State of Israel and to really pay homage to your great support, because your support is important for us, understanding that we are not alone, understanding that there are great voices in Europe which are voices of reason, which are voices of morality, which are voices of conscience, and also voices which make sense and understand really the interests, the intertwined interests between Israel and Europe, because the destiny and the future of Israel and the future of Europe are intertwined. And this is not only because we are part of the same culture, part of the same civilizations, believing in the same values, believing in the same ethos. It's also because of the future. And the future, unfortunately, at that point, is not certain because of things that happen in the Middle East. And things that happen in the Middle East directly affect Europe and directly affect Israel, and we can do a lot to help the people in the Middle East shape their future in a way which will bring about tolerance, which will bring about peaceful coexistence, which will bring about prosperity and cooperation, and which will bring really modernity and introduce reality and the future also to the peoples of the Middle East. The fact that Israel has been attacked or rejected by so many in the Middle East is not necessarily because we are Jewish. It's not because of territorial conflict. It cannot be a territorial conflict. Israel is such a small sliver of state out of the entire Middle East. We occupy only 1/3 of 1% of the entire Middle East. Very small sliver. We also offered territory so many times. This was not the case. People talk about 67 lines. Twice we returned to the 67 lines. May 2000 in Lebanon and August 2005 in the Gaza to the last inch. That didn't bring about peace. There were offers to Arafat and to Abu Mazen with far-reaching concessions. It's not territory. And as I mentioned, it's not because of what we do or our policies. It's because of what we represent. And unfortunately, we represent the Judeo-Christian heritage, we represent Western civilizations, and we represent modernity and tolerance and strong civil societies and human rights and women empowerment and equality for all people, democracy and freedom of speech and free press, and everything with what the Middle East lacks. And unfortunately, there are still many forces in the Middle East which do not like to see this coming. And the fact that they attack us, and I hear it from many in the Middle East, not in public areas, but in small rooms, that they attack us because they see us as part of Europe. Well, we are part of Europe in our history, in our mentality, and I mentioned in our values. But this is not to say that we cannot coexist in the Middle East. And we do appreciate the fact that here in Europe, you have come to understand the other, to live with the other in really full democracy. I would like to see the same thing in the Middle East, especially as there are so many things now happening in the Middle East. People are talking about the so-called Arab Spring. The Arab Spring may be a little bit too advanced to talk about because it invokes the experience in Europe back in 1848 of the Spring of Nations. But in 1848, in the Spring of Nations, the people of Europe at that time, 50 years or so, 60 years after the French Revolution, were much more ready at the time for a real Spring of Nations. But even with the people of Europe then, much more ready than the people of the Middle East are now, it took more than 100 years for the Spring of Nations to bear its fruits. And in these 100 years, we all suffered 2 world wars with millions upon millions of casualties. So we have to beware of analogies. We have to beware of comparing apples to oranges. And we have to understand that what is happening in the Middle East is something unique. It's something unique because the Middle East, unlike any other region in the world, has never seen a democracy yet, has never seen a civil society yet. And when people talk, and we are now facing elections tomorrow in Tunisia, we have to understand, and I hope that the Tunisian people will have a successful elections, free elections, fair elections, democratic elections, open ones. But we have to understand that elections sometimes does not replace democratic values and democratic traditions. Elections sometimes should be at the last phase of the process, where the people have the authority and have the understanding and have the choice of plurality. And this is what we do not see yet in the Middle East. Certainly, the revolutions that we see around us is quite authentic. It's also very spontaneous, and rightly so. And what are the people protesting? Exactly everything that we have here, which is they're protesting against police state brutality, against killing indiscriminately, like we saw in Libya, and we see right now in Syria, we saw it in Iraq and other places. And they want to see equality. And this is what they fight. I believe this all puts into perspective of where Israel is, where Europe is, and why Israel-European connection is so very important. Because Israel is really a beacon of hope and of a model of how societies should run. And I do hope that all the countries around us, at some point, and sooner than later, will be democratic. But they will be democratic only if there will be true and authentic forces in the societies, and they will be able to separate themselves and to shield themselves and protect themselves from foreign interests and foreign involvement. Today, the biggest threat for democratic changes in the Arab world is Iran. Iran, unfortunately, is trying to hijack the revolutions in the Arab world, whether it's in Syria, where they support Assad so forcefully, whether it's in Libya, whether it's in Egypt, or anywhere else. They are trying to use their agents and their activists to hijack the revolution to their end. And in fact, they want to replicate the Islamic Revolution in Tehran in 1979, and we cannot afford another Iran in the Middle East.